Hello and welcome to the new Aphex training session. This is a recording session, so please feel free to pause, rewind and replay as often as you want to make sure you're really learning all about that Aphex planner goodness. For a top line purpose of the call, this session is all about getting your project moved across onto the new Aphex, or if you're a new project getting stuck into the new Aphex, this training session is an introduction to the software, getting you familiar with navigating your way around the project and finding where everything is. If you're an existing user, a lot of the core functionality is the same, so hopefully it won't be too much of a roller coaster for you. So before we get cracking, I wanted to introduce myself quickly. My name is Chloe and I'm a customer success advocate here at Aphex. My role is to be an extension of your team, so supporting you every step of the way on your journey with Aphex. I work really closely with my colleague George, so I'm sure you'll get familiar with both of us as we work together. If this was live, we'd do an around the room, but that would be pretty difficult to do on this static session. So we'll just kick things off. Please do pause and rewind as much as you want. Get stuck in the way that works for you for the training session. Equally, just because this is recorded, that doesn't mean you have to keep all your questions to yourself. Please do pop anything you think of or any thoughts in the comments, and we'll do our best to come back to you quickly. Or if you're an existing user, do reach out in the live chat in the Aphex app. You can find this by heading up to the top right-hand corner and clicking on the little question mark icon to open up the chat box. Essentially, we don't want anyone feeling like shocked Oprah was in the Harry and Meghan interview earlier in the week. Cool. So as a quick run through, if you're watching this, you might be an existing user wanting a bit of a recap or maybe a refresher after a holiday on the software and the functionality. You might be a user that's currently on our legacy Aphex and you're being migrated across, and you might have had a couple of training sessions or inductions with us live, but you might be wanting a bit of a refresher in a more static sense. You might be a complete brand new user, in which case, welcome. We're glad to have you. And you also might just be someone passing through. Maybe you've spotted Aphex somewhere. Maybe you've stumbled across this video because the algorithm deems it so, in which case also welcome. I hope you find this session useful and informative. As a quick outline, I'll run through an introduction to Aphex as a company and then our planner app specifically. We'll then touch on what we call workflows. These aren't groundbreaking concepts. A lot of you on construction projects will be familiar with a lot of these. We've just digitized them. But as I refer to them across the session, wanted to spend a moment now just outlining what they are. So we have our importing and distributing workflow, our building and readying plans workflow, and our publishing and sharing plans workflow. After we've run through those in the app, we'll do a little bit on support with Aphex, a sort of Q&A, but a bit more of a preemptive Q&A, and then next steps if you need any further support. Cool. So to kick things off, for those of you that haven't heard of us at all, Aphex is a construction planning platform that allows engineers to build and communicate their short-term plans. Essentially, we're all about helping teams like yours manage their short-term plans by removing complexity and putting you back in control of your plans and your data. Our app specifically, so this session's looking at our planner app, is a construction planning platform focused on connecting everyone in the team to the part of the plan that's relevant for them. We built it to replace familiar but maybe not super fit for purpose tools like spreadsheets, slides, or maybe really old school post-it notes on the walls. Colourful and great and fun until one falls off and goes missing, and then you're not sure what's supposed to happen next Thursday out on site. If we look at the right-hand side of the page, you'll see that there is a planning routine diagram. I mentioned that we'd be going through some workflows, so this is where I'm going to outline what this means, because we will be referring to these across the session. So if you look at the diagram, you can see that there's a couple of different colours and some fun little characters. To put this really simply, we have our red circle guy represents a planner, and you can see that there are tasks that they are typically in charge of or have responsibility for. And then we have our blue diamond down in the corner who represents our engineers or our delivery team. And again, there's certain tasks that they are responsible for on a typical weekly planning cycle. So if you want to think about your project specifically, you might have a publication target set on a Thursday afternoon that your planner has set. Alongside that, in Aphex, those same planners or your setup team can also create what we call required project assets. Essentially, they can decide from the get-go the level of detail that all of the engineers need to build their plan up to include. Things like, does everybody need to assign a package to each task? Or maybe everyone needs to assign a location and a work area to each task to make the communication of plans super clear and easy to understand. After that publication target step, we move on to the building and readying plan step. This is a delivery team's weekly responsibility. You might already be doing this on Aphex, or maybe if you're new to Aphex completely, you might currently be working on like a whiteboard or multiple spreadsheets. In Aphex, everyone does this building and readying element in one workspace. Super easy to navigate, super easy to drill down to your own work. As we go through the session, you'll see how clear it is that when those publication target goalposts have been set and that level of detail has been identified, it makes the building of plans really quick, really easy, almost just like picking things off of a multiple choice. So it really doesn't take any extra time out of your day. We'll then end on publishing and sharing plans as a workflow. So rather than planners having to sort of tirelessly chase lots of engineers or pull together sort of 30 odd spreadsheets that all refer to the same assets with slightly different names, you'll see with Aphex how that little bit of control that we set at the beginning makes the sort of connecting of all the plans super easy, as well as facilitating innovative sharing on a nice dynamic interactive digital shared plan, as well as being able to print out things like sequence decks too. Cool. So let's dive in and head across to the second tab at the top here, which is our app.aphex.co URL. This is where you'll find the app. And we'll just touch on now the enrollment flow for those of you that are brand new users or yet to sign in. So some of you might have been invited to a project on Aphex and received an email that has a link that you can click on to either join what we call an organization or straight into a project. If that's not happened yet, you can simply head to this URL and create your own account. You can either sign up via email and then check your emails for password setup, or you can do single sign-on with either Microsoft or Google. I've done this, so I can just click on sign in with Google and it will simply and easily log me in. Once you have enrolled, I'd recommend saving your password to your browser or maybe linking your email accounts to make sure that there's no nasty surprises if you forget a password or anything like that. Just to recap, our software is a cloud-based web application. So you don't have to worry about any installation space on your disks. You don't have to worry about keeping an eye out for quarterly or monthly updates that you then have to sort of install over a long process. All you need is an internet connection and a login. I'd always recommend using Google Chrome where you can, but if you are using something like Microsoft Edge, if you're on the most recent version, there should be no issues at all. Cool. So when we've logged in, we've landed on this big white page. This is our homepage. If you're on more than one organization, you'll see these broken down on the left. I want to head to Aphex Customer Success, and where now I can see the list of projects that exist within this organization. I can also see the plan that I'm on, so I know I'm on Aphex Starter, and I know I'm a member of this organization rather than sort of the admin who might be in control of it. I'm going to head down to the project I'm after for today, which is Thursday webinar. I can only apologize. There was a theme in this of a real lack of creativity on my end. So if you've come here for creative inspiration, you might want to head to a slightly different video. Great. So we landed on that home screen. We clicked into our organization. We've clicked onto the project we want, and now we have landed in that project. So your project is the single source of truth that everybody's working on together. Before we get stuck into everything here, I'm just going to run through what's on the screen so that no one's lost. If I look up at the top left, we have the name of the project that I'm on. Following along from this, we have our three main pages. We have our Gantt page, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with, a traditional Gantt chart. We have our clashes page, which is where teams can view and resolve physical clashes between work in the plan. Full marks if you get all of the little film references that we've put in here as well. And then the third page is our map page. We do like keeping things simple, so this is where you can view visual maps of your work. Really good for communicating the look ahead and visualizing any key interfaces of work out on site. If you are playing around on the tool and you get lost, don't worry. At any point where if you're not sure where you are, head to the Aphex A in the top left-hand corner. Click on this to open your left-hand blue panel. And at the bottom of this, you will see these three elements always the same. So if you're lost, just click on Aphex Home. It will take you back to this white organization page where you can head back into the project that you're wanting to work in. And then you'll land back on your Gantt page in that project. Easy. While I've opened this menu, we'll just run through what's in it before we get cracking properly. So at the top here, I have my project name. Underneath that, I have a planner section because we're in the Aphex Planner app. And within that planner section, I have those three key pages. So the Gantt, the clashes, and the maps page that we just ran through. Underneath this, I have 3 pages on project data. We have our import page. If you are a planner or an admin and you're responsible for importing work into the project, this is where you will spend a reasonable amount of time. If you're not sure what importing and maybe top-down, bottom-up planning means, do check out some of our other videos as we delve into these in a bit more depth. Underneath that, we have our project data tab. And this is where if you have imported data, you can assign it to members of the team. And if you're an engineer or someone in the delivery team, you can check into project data to see how you're traveling through all of your work. Underneath this, we have publications, publishing plans and those sort of historical versions of plans or versions of the plans that you'd be sharing out to client, site, or maybe subcontractors. This is where they all live. The section underneath this is project assets. Project assets are what we use to build out and detail our plan. So these are really crucial elements. If you have a project admin or if you are a project admin, you are able to add in and build up project assets. If you're an editor and say you're working in Aphex and you notice that there isn't a subcontractor that you're expecting to see, reach out to your project admin and they can update the asset for you. Underneath this, we have project settings. And then at the bottom, as we mentioned, we have our home button. We have our apps menu. If you're on an enterprise or professional plan, you might have other apps. And then you have your user settings. In user settings, you can customize your avatar to help everyone on the project put a face to the name. And you can also pick your color to customize your Gantt to make it sort of as pretty and as aesthetically pleasing as you want it to be. Great. Okay, cool. So we know the lay of the land a little bit more, but maybe we've logged into Planner, we've checked that we're in the right project, we've got ourselves onto the Gantt and we're ready to get cracking. Looking at the Gantt page, I can see that I have my Gantt table on the left with all my tasks and subtasks. I have my Gantt canvas in the middle, so all of that breakdown and visualization of work over time. And then on the right-hand side here, we have our Gantt right-hand panel. And within this, we have 3 toolbars. We have our inspect panel. To show you what this is, if I click on a subtask, you can see it gets populated with all of the information I could possibly want to know about that task or subtask. The next panel here is my clash panel. So if there were more than one activities planned to be in the same place at the same time that would trigger a clash, I could investigate that here as well. And underneath this, we have our missing data element. Missing data links back to what we said about those project admins or setup team setting project assets. So if you have a required field, we mentioned work areas earlier, and if you haven't filled that in, it gets flagged to you here. So it's super easy to make sure you've detailed your plan out to the desired level of information. Great. I'll just collapse that back down for now. Cool. So when you log in and you land in the Gantt, we start off by showing you the work that's most relevant to you, so your own work. If you have had calls with us in the team, you might have heard us use the Google Maps metaphor, in the same way that when you search for a location on Google, you don't get shown the whole globe and have to drill in yourself. You're presented with a drilled down sort of street level view of that location. And then you have the power and control to zoom out and look at as much or as little as you want. And it's the same concept here. So I start off looking at my own work. All of the tasks in a project on Aphex are given a single owner so that we know who in the team we're holding accountable for building and readying that part of the plan to the required level of detail. But maybe I'm wanting to look at slightly more people's work than my own. To do that, I head up to the top right here and I see this button that says My Work. I can click on that and toggle it to All Work. I'm now looking at everybody's work across the whole plan. So a far more holistic view of everything that's going on. Particularly useful maybe if I am a planner or a project manager. You're also welcome to create as many or as few teams as you want to group the work and view different levels of information. To do this, if you head up to that Aphex A in the top left-hand corner again, click on that and scroll down to that project assets section, but this time click into users and teams. If I click into teams, I can press on create new team here and select multiple users to view all of their work together. Maybe I'm working back to back with someone on the night shift, or if I am managing, say, a team of 6 people, I could create those here, and then I would be able to organize my view based off of this. You can also apply other people's teams. So every member of that hypothetical 6-man team I just spoke about would not have to come in and create the team themselves. Once one of you's done it on the project, everybody else can choose that view if they want to as well. Nice. While we're in users and teams, just want to spend a second talking about the different user types you can have on an Aphex project. The majority of you will probably be added in as an editor. So editors have complete control over creating, amending and updating work that they own, that they have been assigned to, that they are responsible for. The second role in a project is an admin. Your admin can remove tasks from the past, so they have a little bit more control. They also have complete control over adding, removing and editing project assets. So if you get halfway through your project and you need to add in a suite of new subcontractors, your project admin can do that for you. Equally, maybe the site entrance changes and you need to upload a new location sketch or general arrangement drawing. This would be something to reach out to your project admin for so that they can update the locations that you're working on in the tool. Super easy to do. It's just that an editor doesn't have that capability enabled, whereas an admin does. The third and final role on an Aphex Planner project is a viewer. Viewers can see the live plan and they can comment on work, but they can't edit or change any of the tasks that are in the Gantt. Use cases for this might be commercial, safety, or maybe subcontractors. Cool. So I'm going to head back over to my Gantt page. And now we've decided how much work I want to view. So for this example, I'm just going to look at my work. Actually, I'll leave it on all work for now. I can then decide how I want to structure the work. So in the app, work is always viewed in a structure, but you can change this depending on what you're wanting to find out. On Aphex, we have 2 main structures. You can find them up here in the top left, and you can pick between packages and WBS. WBS stands for Work Breakdown Structure, and it's a single project structure typically imported directly from that master schedule that might live in P6 or Microsoft Project. If you're a planner or a project manager or maybe a director, you might be really familiar with these. It's sort of like a hierarchical tree that all of the tasks from the project are organized within. If I click to this now, you'll see that it's come out. It's usually denoted by numbers. So you might have 1.4.1 to denote different parts of the plan in different areas. The second option is packages. Packages are a custom way of organizing work, a bit like organizing files into different folders. But really simply, packages are probably how you talk about the work actually out on site. So rather than saying something like, I think we're making really good progress on part 1.2.4.5 of the plan, guys, you'll probably be more likely to say, we're traveling well through the columns. So you can make as many or as few packages as you want to really sort of translate that WBS into an understandable, usable language for all of the guys out on site, or maybe if you're in the delivery team, this will be particularly useful for you. Within this, you then have the option to group by owner. So if I go owner package, I'm now looking at each individual user and then the work grouped by packages in the project that way. So super clear, nice and modular, so I can see who's responsible for what and where it sits in the plan. I'm now going to drill down just to look at my work so that when we get stuck into the nitty-gritty and the functionality, there's not too much going on the page. In the top right of the screen, you'll see some familiar functionality like find and filter if you're wanting to specify what you're looking at or look for specific tasks, areas, or parts of the WBS. Cool. So now we all know what we're looking at. If we think about that hypothetical work week, we're going to get stuck in as if it's a Monday morning, and we know that we're working towards that publication target on Friday afternoon or Thursday afternoon. If I'm an engineer, I will have been getting app-generated emails to remind me about this upcoming deadline. And if I'm a planner, I'll have seen slightly different emails, keeping me informed of who has and hasn't readied their work. So we're all really clued up on how we're traveling towards that deadline. And this sets us up for that first workflow we mentioned at the start of the session, building and readying. So all about letting delivery teams and engineers build plans that they can be confident in, but also plans that everybody else can trust. We do this in Aphex by connecting them with everybody else's plans and clearly letting the team know when they have updated and filled out the plan or made it ready, as this big blue button at the top says here. The software helps you along the way by providing guided planning. And this guided planning is based off of those specific project timelines and asset levels that you set at the beginning. So let's check out what that looks like. For this hypothetical project, we're going to go through both a top-down and a bottom-up approach. To touch on what that means, a top-down approach is where your project might be importing high-level or parent tasks directly from your master schedule or long-term plan, which might live in P6 or something like Microsoft projects. If you're doing a bottom-up approach, it's a very similar process. Apart from you don't import any of these tasks, you just create those high-level parent tasks in-app and then break them down. So if your project is importing, or if you're thinking about importing, we'll go through that first, and then we'll go through bottom-up. If you've imported tasks and work, what will have happened is your planner will have done an import. Everything will have landed in an unassigned section, so it doesn't immediately populate the Gantt and lead to lots of confusion. They will have then gone through all of those unassigned imported tasks and applied an owner or responsibility for different ones. If you get assigned a task from an import, it's really obvious and I guarantee you can't miss it. You'll notice here I have been assigned some work. I have this big bright red bar at the top of my screen that says new data has been added to your backlog. If I click on this, it will take me immediately to the project data page, where I can see that unassigned tab we just spoke about, but then I can see my personal backlog. Equally, if I open that left-hand column, I can see that project data has a big red 2 next to it, again indicating to me that I have 2 tasks in my backlog. The reason we outline this quite so clearly for you is if work is in your backlog, it hasn't landed in the live Gantt, which means nobody else can see it. It won't be being monitored, and when it gets compared back to the master schedule, these tasks will be missing. So it's crucial when you log in that you double check that you don't have any work sat in your backlog that you're expecting to be in the live plan. If you do, super easy to add it in. You can see that I've already got a lot of the details populated here. So all I have to do is head to my package column, assign the package. So let's say for these, it is fit out. Once I've assigned the package, I can now have the option to add the 2 tasks directly into my plan by pressing this button here. It takes a couple of seconds, and now this screen is blank, which means when I head back to my Gantt, those tasks will have appeared. Equally, I can head to the next column and I can see that they will have been added to my planned tasks too. I can head back to my GAN also by heading over here and pressing this button in the top right. Now we can see that in that fit out package, I have those 2 new tasks directly from my master schedule import. Cool. So that is our top-down approach. If we look at a bottom-up example, very similar, you just approach it from a slightly different angle, literally on the screen. So if I head to the left, you can see there's a blue button here that says Add Task. Because I've selected packages as my structure, it's offering me the option to add the task into these existing packages. This is the same case if I was viewing work in WBS. You can see I can add a task directly into 1.3 structures, directly into 1.4 fit out, or I can add it into the no WBS assigned section, and then I'd be able to move it to wherever I want it to be in the plan. So sticking with our package view, I'm going to stay in my electrical package. I'm going to add a task, but this time I'm going to call it Ava's room overhead lighting. Full marks if you get the pop culture reference before I show you the map, half marks if it takes you to the map, and if you've never heard of it, I'd recommend giving it a watch at the weekend. Cool. So I've now added in a task, and this is indicative of the same situation of whether I'd imported or built in a task. I'm looking at a high level activity, really useful for long-term planning, not super useful for the guys out on site that need to make this actually happen within this date range. So to break down a task, all I have to do is right click, hover over breakdown, and then move my cursor to indicate how many subtasks I want to break it into. For this example, I'm going to pick 3, and you can see they automatically get broken down and sequenced out in a chronological order. The next key thing to do here is to name your subtasks. It would get pretty confusing pretty quickly if you ended up creating a project with sort of 1,000 rows of new subtasks. So I'm going to call these bracketing, wiring, and installation. Great. So now we have added in our tasks and we've broken them down. The next thing we might want to do is check that the sequence is right. So to do this, I can slide my tasks along to be at the right dates, and I can have a look at how they're linked together. If you're importing, links between parent tasks get automatically imported. If you're building up, you might need to spend a little bit more time making sure you've detailed out your links as you want them to appear. To change a link, I can click on it and I'll get this pop-out modal. I can change the relationship from a finish start to a finish finish, start finish, or start start. And I can also set my days of lag or negative lag if I need to. Equally, I can delete the link and then it is gone from the plan. To draw a new link, all you have to do is hover over the task or subtask and click on the white circle at either end, depending on which direction you're drawing your link. Once you've clicked that, you can drag it to any other subtask or task on the plan. It doesn't have to be your own work. I could connect this to somebody else's work if I had that in view too. I draw the link and you'll notice it pulled those 2 tasks back to be on consecutive days. Planner will assume this is what you're wanting to happen, but if you are wanting to keep any lag in, all you have to do is Control Z to undo and then hold down Shift before you draw that link in. This will lock in that lag and make sure that it's not lost. Perfect. So now we're ready to really detail out our plan. If I head up here where it says owner and package and follow this along, there's a blue table which indicates my column pickers. On these, right at the top, we have a required fields section. This is where if your project has set specific data levels that they need you to put in or specific elements that they want you to detail out, this is a real time saver because rather than you having to root around in all the column drawers, you can just add this in and it will add it to the plan. So for this project, I can see that my required fields as set by my project setup team and my planner is subcontractor, location and work area, and package. So for this task, we'll go through these quickly now. Subcontractor or subby, this is really useful because it assigns someone to be accountable for the work. Subcontractors are configured at a project level, and it also lets us easily communicate out the plan to the supply chain. I can simply click from the pre-existing drop-down menu So here I'm going to pick Eric's Electricians. I can Control C, Shift Select, and Control V to paste them down. Location and work area, these are key. Location lets me assign either a site GA or a location sketch that my project admin has uploaded. So for this example, I'm going to pick Ex Machina sublevel. And once I have done that, I'm then enabled to draw on a work area. So for your work area, you don't want to draw specifically around, say, the exact column you're working on. You're marking up the space that that task is going to take up. So maybe there is material storage that has to happen nearby. If you are using something like a crane or a digger, it would be marking on the space that that plant would take up as well. But you have a couple of options. You can draw a rectangle, a circle, or a freehand shape. So I'm going to zoom in into Ava's room here and just centralize it in the screen. And then I'm going to draw on the whole room because we're doing overhead lights. To amend the box, I can just click on my pointer icon and then tweak the shape to be sort of as customized and as detailed as I want it to be. I could get really in there and make it a specific circle, but for time's sake, I won't do that now. I press save and it has updated this work area for us. Cool, okay. Again, with these, I can Control C, Shift Select, and Control V to paste them down. Packages we've already touched on are a way of structuring your work. So for here, I'm going to select electricals as my package. You'll notice I could only assign the package at a parent task level, so this high level activity. Similar to a WBS, you can't have subtasks belonging to different section of your plan than their parent task do. Great, okay, so for this project, we've now filled out the sort of required fields that we are expected to. So I'll just spend a couple of minutes now going through the other columns. If I open up our time drawer, all pretty self-explanatory here. We have our start, our finish, and our duration, just showing you the start date of a task, the finish date, and its duration. The next columns here are calendar and shift. Calendar and shift are quite important. So for calendars, these can be imported or configured in-app. You also have a selection of basic calendars to pick from. So I can pick from my 5-day, 6-day, 7-day, etc. Maybe my company has a specific away day at the end of June, so I could maybe customize the 5-day calendar to reflect that. To show you what it looks like in action, this is a task on a 5-day calendar, so we can see that the working days are solidly filled, and then the non-working days, so the weekend here, are grayed out. If I was to change that to 7-day, it pings back to be on 2 consecutive days and is all filled out in that dark purple color. Great. The fourth column here is shift. You can pick from 4 standardized shifts. These are day shift, afternoon shift, night shift, and then all or 24-hour shift. And your shift column is key because this is one of the things that informs that interface clash detection feature we touched on. So definitely recommend giving this a once over to check it's all correct. Cool. Our next drawer of columns is our team column. This is a particularly crucial column as it's where you can check in on who the task has been assigned to. So if it's imported, the likelihood is this will be correct because a planner has either assigned it directly to you or they assigned it to someone higher up in your team who's then delegated it down because they know the inner workings of the team that little bit more. However, if you're a project admin, I would recommend having the owner column open, particularly as you get started, just to make sure you're not editing work that you think is your own, but actually still technically belongs to someone else in the software. Another occasion to open up your owner column would be if you logged in, headed to your Gantt, filtered to my work, and then didn't see anything, or only saw, say, half of the plan that you're expecting to. I would open up the owner column and head to all work and have a little look to see where those other tasks have fallen. Cool. The next columns are all about resources. So we have our subcontractor column that we've been through, and then we have labor, plant, and materials. Really good for resource loading our plan. So for labor, I can click from a pre-configured list In-app, again, if there's anything missing here, reach out to your admin and they can get things added in. So I'm going to say electricians, and I'm going to say I need 3 of them. Next to that, I have my plant option where I can pick any plant that I need to. So let's say a small lorry. And then materials is super useful if you're using quants or quantities and you're wanting to measure the installation of work by material rather than progression by shift. So for example, for this, if we say copper wiring, and let's say it is 27. One of my days is today, so it's already logged it in the past, which is why I can't amend the planned amount. But you can see it's really easy to come in and update your actuals versus planned. And I can distribute this work as I need to across the rest of the days. Perfect. Those are our resources column. Underneath that, we have our map column, which we've been through with our locations and our work areas. And underneath this, we have our structure column. So we've gone through WBS and we've gone through package, but external ID is another key column if you are doing importing or top-down planning. Put really simply, when you import from something like P6, the activity ID assigned to a task will populate this external ID column. What this means is when the delivery team have spent all that time detailing out and sequencing their work into subtasks, when the next import comes around, none of that is lost because Planner will scan for any external IDs that match any activity IDs on the new import and make sure that nothing gets wiped from the software. Cool. The fourth column here is parent. And as we spoke about, we have our high level or parent activity tasks. For example, this one up here, which is a nice long bar, which then gets broken into subtasks or children tasks, all of which belong to that high level parent activity. Great. The final column is communication and notes. This is a lot more ad hoc, so you can sort of detail out anything you need to about your plan. Maybe you've got a customized code system that you guys are working on. Sort of the world is your oyster with your notes column. Awesome. Okay, cool. So even though we're planning hypothetically today, it would be too far removed from reality if everything was instantly ready to go once we'd filled in all those details. So we're going to have a quick look at clashes. To recap, a clash is when 2 activities are scheduled at the same time in the same place. This might create a space that's unsafe. It might create a working environment that's inefficient, dangerous, or simply not feasible. You'll notice when I assigned my location and work area to this task here, it went this bright red color. This is what indicates the clash. So it draws my attention, so I know that I need to have a look in and see if there's anything I can resolve. At the same time, I also had a red dot appear on my notification bell, and I had a red dot appear on that clash panel that we spoke about earlier. So I have a few options here. I can choose to leave my clash in, and then maybe in a collaborative planning session, I can head to my clashes tab and we could talk through these clashes with the relevant teams and work through it quite in a consolidated way. But that is not my only option. If I double click on the clashing task to open up this inspect panel with all of the data, I can now investigate what's happening. So I can either mark my clash as non-conflicting. So maybe there are 2 things that could happen in the same place at the same time, absolutely okay. But if I did that, it wouldn't resequence any of the work, so I wouldn't have actually resolved the clash. My other option, which is definitely the case here, is that it might just be messy work area drawings. So I can click into inspect, double check that that's the case, open it up through the pop-out and redraw the work area so that they're not clashing. For this example, we'll pretend that it is a real clash, which brings me on to the 4th route that you could go down, which would probably be the most common, which is to resequence the work and resolve the clash. You'll notice that when I clicked on the bar, all of the cells behind it also changed color. We have these red shaded cells letting me know that if I move the task there will still be a clash. But then I have these nice blue cells that let me know if I move the task there, the clash will be resolved. So if I click and drag it along, I can see I've moved it into these blue cells. It's no longer red. Our little indication over here is gone. So we have successfully resolved our clash. Nice. Also in this inspect panel, I can double check to see if I've got any missing data. And if I needed to, I can work through that. However, as a delivery team member or an engineer, maybe I am totally happy with this plan. Maybe those missing fields aren't possible to fill in. So I am ready to let my planner and my team know that my part of the project is completely ready to go. To do this, I'd head up to the top here and press Make Ready. I get a pop-out, which lets me know if there are any clashes left or any incomplete fields left. And then I can easily go and work through these. Or if I'm happy to, I can make my plan ready with those issues, which then is indicated by this little green tick up the top. Cool. So just before we move on to the publishing and sharing flow, as the planners would dive in here and pick things back up, just wanted to touch on how to log and update the plan to reflect delays that happen out on site. So even if we've made our plan as robust and as foolproof as it can be, things like weather can always add in unexpected delays. So I'm just going to add in another task here and call it delay example to show you how you add in a delay in Planner. I'm going to press Shift and Enter to create a new task quickly, just to sprinkle in those hotkey time savers for you all. Great. So if I extend these to be a little bit longer and then I move them both into the past, we can see they've gone this lovely green color as Aphex has assumed they've all gone to plan. We've got two main types of delay that you can add in. You have a late start. So for a late start delay, maybe it was planned to start on the 15th, but it snowed. So it didn't start until the 16th. So I slide the bar along and I'm met with this smart status pop out asking me to put in a delay reason linked to that last planner system. And this fuels the Aphex root cause analysis, which we'll come on to at the end. So let's say for this, it was weather. I then have the option to add in any comments or a document, maybe a picture of site snowed off, as a picture does paint 1,000 words. I press save, and that is all updated and indicated by this gray dotted line. The second type of delay is a full day of delay. So maybe work on the 15th all went to plan, but nothing could happen on the 16th, let's say this time due to like access issues. I hover over the end of the bar and extend it by a day. And again, I'm met up with this smart status pop out, but here I can click the specific day. I then choose my reason. So we just said awaiting access. I press save and it is updated, this time with a solid black fill. Cool. I'm just going to quickly delete these off. You can see that's nice and easy to do as well. Great. So now we're ready to move on to our final workflow, our publishing and sharing workflow. So if you're a planner that's tuned in, I hope you've not fallen asleep. It's your time to shine. So publishing and sharing in Aphex is all about giving you as planners the control to consistently provide all of the relevant parties with the information that they need. No more having to tell management that it's not quite ready, and a real focus here on removing any chasing of engineers, which isn't fun for you and is definitely not fun for the guys that have just put all of that effort into building out their plans accurately. Hopefully the three focus points that should emerge here for you are that we're aiming to give you control of the process, we're aiming to simplify the publishing process, and we're looking to allow unrestricted sharing to stakeholders, clients, non-Aphex users, whoever you want. So we said that Friday morning was the publishing deadline here, and we've just seen that all of our engineers have readied their plans by pressing this Make Ready button at the top. So if we head back to this left-hand menu over here and go down to the publications section, this is where all of that information lives. I can see any previous publications as well as any upcoming publications. And for both of these, I can see how many of my engineers readied their plans in time, when it was published or when it's due, if there were any clashes, and if there are any missing fields. For the upcoming published version, if I click on this, I get a bit more information again, so I can drill down per user to see exactly where they're at with readying their TAP plans. I then have the option to publish whenever I see fit. So I could wait until everybody has readied their plans, or maybe I need to publish now, I can do that as well. I will be asked to sort of double confirm that I'm ready to go. And then I also have the option to promise tasks. So promising tasks, basically each week in our routine, we make a version of the plan to communicate so that everyone knows what they have to do. Promising marks a section of the plan that we're really confident in outside of this week. So instead of just making a version of the plan, we're making commitment that that part of the plan will definitely happen. And it basically just means we get alerted with any deviations from this. If I'm happy, I press publish plan, and I've now created my published version. You can navigate to your published versions directly from this page just by clicking on it and then press view version, and it'll open it in a new tab for you at the top. Historical versions of plans are just as engaging as that current live project we were working on, and you have all of the same features apart from the ability to edit, because you're looking at a version of the plan, not the live plan. But I can still apply any filters that I want. So maybe I'm only wanting to look at my electricals package. I can change how it's structured, so I can look at it by packages, and I can search for specific tasks as well. So everything, sort of all of that control is still the same for you. And then this is what we would send out to client, management, site, etc. So I can send out the Gantt itself. For this, I might want to limit what I've shown, as I have done here. I also might want to add in some overlays to sort of add a bit more color and interest into the plan. I have the choice of a performance overlay, which compares my plan to a previous snapshot. So if I show my previous snapshot and just wait for it to load, it's a really quick way to dip into progress on the plan to see if anything's changed and sort of where deviations or slippage has occurred. You can take automatic snapshots when you do imports and when you do publications, or you can do a manual snapshot too for any variants. So here we can see there's been a reasonable amount of change in where these days have gone, some negative and some positive. Our next overlay is resources. This is a great way to sort of communicate out to site and get sort of subcontractor identification really clear. All of the tasks have changed to be in the color of the relevant subcontractor. So for Eric's electricians, that's this bright yellow color. I also then have an indication of any material, plant and resources that have been assigned to each task, as well as a total for each day. Maybe if I have COVID related caps for how many people can be on site at any given time, this would be a really quick way to check in here. I can change the type of resource I'm looking at. And if I head over to my map tab, you can see that that has taken effect here as well. So it's a really nice visual, clear way of seeing what's going on where and who's responsible. Once you're happy with how you've configured it, so either your Gantt or your map or the sort of data as a whole, you're then ready to press share. I can choose if I'm wanting to share the filtered work only. So in this case, it was to that specific package and that specific subcontractor, or I can share all tasks. So maybe I'm sharing out project wide, and in the past, I might have had to go through and send them sort of like 60 different versions. Now I can send everybody the same version and they have the control and power to drill into the bits that are relevant to them. Equally, I can really limit it and put the blinkers on if maybe I'm sharing out to client and I don't quite want them to see everything. So once I've made this decision, I can create my shareable link and I'm ready to share a nice digital interactive link for anyone that I want to send it to. I can then keep an eye on who I've shared it with and when they've viewed it. I can print my plan if I want, and I can download my data. Super simple, super easy, no longer relying on any old school PDFs or spreadsheets. Cool. I'm just going to close this off and we're going to head back to our live plan. Just to touch on, as much as we saw all of those overlays there, they do exist on the live plan too. So the final overlay is pathways. This is if you have any key activities or milestones marked, you'll see that they get turned this lovely gold color and are indicated by a star. If you need to set something as a key activity, double click on it and you'll see you have the option in your inspect panel up here to mark it or unmark it as a key activity. Great. So those are the key workflows all run through. The final thing to touch on is, as we saw, updating that delay data and making sure that the owners and subcontractors are all assigned correctly, give us a little bit more analytical power. So if you're on the freemium version of Aphex, you have the option to head up to your project name, click on Project Insights, and you'll get a really nice selection of visualizations and data about overall performance and root causes of delay across your project. So I can look at shift completion by Aphex user or by subcontractor. And then I can get a little bit more insight and see where my delays have happened, which subcontractors have faced the most delay, and what the most common delay reasons are. We do have a whole host of other analytical and insight reports and tools. If you want to check out Aphex Insight, I'd really recommend getting stuck into that. Equally, if your project does have access to Aphex Insight and you want training specifically on those charts, do reach out and we can set that up as well. Cool. The only other thing to touch on then is if at any point you're in Aphex and you're a little bit lost or you have some questions, head up to the top right-hand corner to this question mark icon. Click on this to open up your Construction Success Hub, where you can reach out to George, myself, and the rest of the customer success team and send us a live message. We'll usually come back to you in a couple of minutes, and please do reach out. We love hearing from everyone. And as much as I've been talking about collaboration on your own project, we're definitely focused on collaborating with all of our users too. So if you have a feature request or a suggested area for development, definitely reach out because we're going to try and make Aphex the best it possibly can be for all of you as well. Underneath that, you have the option to join the waitlist if you're not currently on this new version. You have the ability to search in our knowledge base for articles to help you sort of with a more autonomous approach to any questions. And as always, you can sign back up to this free weekly webinar or a project setup specific webinar if maybe you're an admin or you've come in and you're creating your own project. Awesome. Do reach out if you have any questions or if there's anything in the tool that you want to run over in a bit more of a real life person way. Otherwise, have a lovely day. And as always, happy planning.